Greg, and we're here at day 3 of Cognite's Impact 2025. And I'm here with Jason Schern. Jason is the field CTO for Cognite. So welcome, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. It's great to be here.
Hey, thanks for having a couple minutes and carving out some time to have a conversation.
Yeah, happy to.
You know, so as field CTO, I know you've got a unique vantage point between technology development and real-world applications.
Yeah.
Where do you see industrial data management heading in the next year, and what shifts are going to be required for companies to truly operationalize AI?
Yeah. So we're on this path of acceleration of the convergence of IT and OT data, and a lot of that is coming from we're overcoming that reluctance that used to be OT data is only for us in the factory and nobody else can have this or use this, to an age where it's like, man, everybody needs to have this because there's a lot of use cases that can only be delivered when you combine this data with a lot of other rich data sets across the company. And so as they come to that realization, it used to be you really had to convince people of the need for that convergence. You don't have to convince people of the need for that anymore. You just need to show them a path to it that is credible and is going to get them there quickly and reliably. And when you can do that, it moves there. And so that is happening a lot, number one.
Okay.
And number two is AI is further accelerating that because, we had a customer say this, I'm stealing it from them, but it's absolutely true, which is if you want to be good at AI, you got to be great at data. And I think that's becoming more and more obvious is to really extract power from AI in a deterministic and reliable way, you need very, very context-rich data that it can reason across. And that context richness comes from a variety of data sources that can be stitched together based on their semantic, meaningful relationships. Not just, a part number is related to another part number. You need to know that, this piece of equipment is upstream from this piece of equipment, which is operating in this way and affecting downstream equipment in this way. When you have that semantic, meaningful relationship tying those things together, you provide a richer context fabric for the reasoning engine of AI to navigate and provide you insights that normally would be really difficult to gather. And so I think you don't have to overcome the argument of why you should do it. They just need to know that you can do it. And then AI is adding fuel to that fire by saying, the more context-rich data you have, the more deterministic insights you're going to get out of AI.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. It's basically the definition of context, right? It's like,
yes.
What is the environment around this piece of information, or where this is
and we're all used to using ChatGPT and the large language models, and these large language models being language-based, the context is built into the content, right? Grammar, word choice, paragraph order, all those things provide context that is inside the content already. But if you look at industrial data, if I've got streams and streams of time series data, how much context is there in that? Almost none.
Yeah, zip, right?
Like none, right? And so, whereas with language, you don't have to do anything to add context, with industrial data, there is something you have to do to provide enough context for the reasoning engine of generative AI to be able to do something with it. So it's not enough to have the time series data. You need to know, was there a work order? When was it executed? What was it for, right? Where is this piece of equipment in the context of the overall schematic of the plant? Is it upstream? Is it downstream? What's happening up above it? What's happening down below it? All of those things provide context that allow you to reason, right? And so that's the big difference now is the generative AI models are tremendously useful if you have context.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of on the same line, my next question, there's a lot of buzz around AI co-pilots and generative AI tools in an industrial setting specifically, like we're talking about. From your experience, with customers and some insights there, what's separating those that are getting measurable, tangible results out of their things, and they're moving and running on all cylinders, as they say, as opposed to some of those that are maybe still stuck in limbo and haven't quite figured it out?
Where you see a real difference is when somebody's able to scale these things. And so when we talk about scalability in a business set, especially in an IT context, you're usually talking about how much data can you handle, what's the performance going to be. But the scalability you care about is value scaling, meaning can I develop an agent for one particular site or line or asset, and then lift and shift that to the next site, line, or asset, and it just works. And When you can do that, agents that provide small incremental value on one site provide very measurable value across all sites. And so a really good example of that is, I was at, I won't say their name, but a large upstream oil company in Asia. And they had 11 offshore assets. And they'd recently done an audit, and we said, how many applications, agents, and other things have you developed for these assets? And it was 140.
Okay.
Right? The business comes to IT, says, hey, I need you to build me this thing for the asset to help me improve some aspect of its operation. IT, being the good corporate citizen, says, yeah, I'll get right on that. They build it for them, and it's great. I said, wonderful. How many of those 140 can you turn off? Oh, none. I mean, the asset would go crazy because it's critical to their operation now. I said, wonderful. So you've got 140 things that deliver value to the business. Yes. How many of those 140 agents or applications have been deployed beyond the original asset it was built for? 0.
Wow.
Value scaling is key, and that is most importantly seen in the realm of agentic AI. If I go and I go and experiment on one site, and I build an agent, it's great, and everyone thinks this is wonderful. What's my ability to then take that and go to the next site or asset and get that same value? And if you don't have a plan to handle the data properly, that whole data ops conversation fueling AI is the most relevant conversation to value scaling. Because if I have the proper data ops architecture, an agent or AI solution that I build for one site or asset or line, I can lift and shift to the next one and the next one and the next one very quickly. And when you do that, things that provide incremental value in one place provide measurable value to the business across all assets. And so that's what you should be striving for. You should be striving for not just some magical use case that drives some outsized advantage in one place.
But that's in a bubble, right?
That's in a bubble.
Yeah.
You want to find the things that you're going to scale rapidly across them all, because validated value across multiple assets delivers a much bigger, measurable impact to the business.
It's fascinating when you watch this unfold. I mean, I love that perspective, though.
Yeah.
Going back to a comment that I think you made earlier, too, bridging the IT-OT void, you hear it a lot of times, or
Yeah.
chasm, it's been talked about for years. From a technical and a cultural standpoint, I mean, what do you think is getting in the way of organizations figuring this out?
I'm sitting in a little bit of a unique position in the sense that from a technical standpoint, there's nothing standing in the way. That's our business, it's what we do. We've solved that technical challenge. That's not an issue. Culturally, you still have challenges, and they usually come from some older paradigms that we haven't been able to shake yet, particularly this notion that industrial data belongs on site and should stay on site. Number one. And then number two would be this notion that copying data is bad. And those two stem from an old reality of storage costs used to be pretty prohibitive. And so copying data in multiple locations would actually be a cost burden. That is not true anymore, right? Like storage costs are pennies on the gigabyte. What kills you is compute. When you try to find relevant data and it requires tremendous amount of compute to go find it, connect it, and deliver it to you, that's what kills you. Copying is nothing. And so when you say, OT data on the shop floor stays on the shop floor, and it does, it should stay there. You need it for real-time controls, you need it for a whole lot of things. But copying that to the enterprise to be combined with a lot of other rich data sets that can provide context to AI and deliver a lot of other use cases is tremendously valuable to the business, and there's almost zero cost in making that copy. And so it's a cultural shift of being able to say, it's okay if our OT data is in multiple places. It's okay if we copy data, because in the copying, you're optimizing things in a way that dramatically lowers the compute cost to get that data very quickly, which in the age of AI is everything. I want to have interactive level user performance and accessing industrial data so that AIs see that same low latency when they look at your data.
Interesting. So carry on that same point, how do you see the role of edge computing evolving in industrial environments? And how does Cognite's architecture support the balance between local autonomy and centralized intelligence, if you will?
Yeah, I think the local autonomy will continue because there's this, when you talk about real-time control, at least today, there's not a path towards cloud-managed data and real-time control. There are in some cases, but where you need, sub-second level latency in real-time control, data that you store in the cloud is not going to give you that. So those aren't the use cases that you target for that. You still have your local edge compute and your local edge real-time control activities, but then being able to take that data, elevate it to the enterprise, and combine it with other data sets is going to allow you to do analytics and reasoning across that data that will inform what you want to do back on the shop floor. So they're still tied together, but they're not going to merge to the point that the lines are completely blurred. I don't think. I could be wrong, but I don't see that happening yet. There may come a day where that happens, but we're not there yet.
But we can definitely leverage that data in other parts of the organization.
All day long. All day long. Yeah.
You often talk about using data for sustainability and efficiency. Can you share some examples of where you've seen better data centralization and contextualization, and how that's directly impacted your emissions reductions or efficiency, OEE in the floor?
Yeah, there's several. One that comes to mind, I can't say their name because they don't like these things to be publicly referenceable.
That's okay.
But this is a midstream operator in the United States. They were seeking to reduce energy consumption across their fields, so primarily across pumps and compressors and things of that nature. And they were able to see a 15% reduction of energy usage across their operations from what I described before. It's just taking the sensor data that you have off the equipment and then elevating it to the enterprise to combine it with financial information, financial forecasting, for energy costs, and where you should run lower for a few hours, where you should run higher for a few hours. And then also within their operations, they had a lot of equipment that was necessary to separate water from oil and other things within the pipe. And by taking the operational data and combining it with other data sets that weren't on site, they were able to develop these virtual flow meters where instead of doing laboratory testing of the content of the pipe, they were able to use analytics just from the sensors of pressure, temperature, flow rates to be able to determine what is the oil to water ratios, and then to be able to run those pieces at an optimized level from an energy consumption standpoint. Because there's trade-offs in all of that, right? Sure. You might be willing to have it be more contaminated and deal with it later because the energy required to do that at that stage is better than now. And so you can imagine the variables involved with different times of day have different energy costs, different procedures have different energy costs. And so by combining that OT data with all of that other financial and forecasting and operational data, they were able to do optimization across their field that resulted in about a 15% improvement of energy consumption. That's huge.
Yeah, especially in the size of those facilities.
Right? Yeah, it's unbelievably impactful. And so that's what I kind of mean. That's a really good example of when you can combine OT with all of these other data sets, you get additional context that you can't get in any other way. And now not only can humans reason over that, but now AIs can reason over that in support of those human decision makers to adjust the operational efficiency of the organization.
Yeah, so as AI becomes more increasingly embedded in these daily workflows, how do you envision that evolving relationship between human expertise side of things and the machine intelligence and the industrial operations?
Yeah.
What's your crystal ball tell you that's going to look like?
A lot of people are like, AI is going to replace humans. I was like, no, they're just augmenting us in a way that is giving us an increased capacity to do more. And a really good example of that, there was a session yesterday on, Aker BP was talking about root cause analysis. And if you think about failures in a heavy asset industrial setting, those failures are tremendously impactful from a safety, cost, production standpoint. And so when they happen, they do these big root cause analysis activities to try to determine the root cause for why it happened, but then come up for a plan that would make it impossible for that to happen again in the future. Well, those RCA activities typically take months. And so because of that, you can't do an RCA for every incident that really should require one. You can only do it for a certain number of them. And so for the ones that you can perform, you get business benefit out of doing that, but there's a whole bunch of others you just don't have the time to go attack. But when you can have AI augment the humans in this RCA process, what they talked about at Aker BP is one aspect of the RCA process went from taking 6 weeks to less than 6 hours, right? That type of compression is huge. And a lot of people default to, oh, then, I don't need as many people to do RCA. It's like, no, you're missing the point. The company has not been able to do all the RCAs that they should be doing. By doing that compressive activity using AI, now with the same people, I can go and attack that backlog of RCAs that normally I would never get to, and I get the business benefit of the resolutions that come from those. And so where it's going is not that it's eliminating the work people do, it's allowing us to do the work that we haven't been able to get to in the first place that have real meaningful impact to the business. So it starts becoming this companion for you in your daily work. And so I'm not interested in, because I don't see it, how AI is replacing somebody. It's augmenting somebody in a way that allows them to do more.
Yeah, enabling, right?
Yeah, in a huge way. And just for selfish purposes, you have to use this, but my own team, I have all the technical field resources that work, and they're starting to be able to use AI in a very meaningful way in quickly, rapid prototyping use cases for customers and things. Things that used to take 10 days, they can do in a couple hours. And so, normally a customer would tell us what they're trying to do, and we're like, wow, there's like 5 things that would be really great to do. I probably have time to go work on 2 of those.
Right.
Right. But now I'm like, oh, I can knock out all 5 of those things, which allows us to deliver more value to them, which then in turn allows them to get more value out of the software. And so there's these pile-on effects that are really interesting.
No, it's enabling is just, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Where it's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, as a person working in industry and technology, there's never been a funner time to be at work, because there's so much impact you can have that really moves the needle.
Yeah, it's kind of to that point. I mean, we've heard some, I would call them BHAG goals that have been thrown out there this week, at Impact 2025. I think it was Aker BP that you mentioned. I mean, they put down a gauntlet of leveraging AI to unlock a 300% increase in their efficiencies.
Yeah.
And then, the moonshot that you folks have put
Yes.
on Cognite of, a $100 billion, delivery of customer value is huge.
Yeah.
I think that's by 2035 was the
Yes.
target, the bogey that was thrown out there, right?
Right. We're giving ourselves a little runway.
That's right. Go big or go home, as they say, right?
Right.
What message or mindset, would you like attendees from Impact 2025 and our community, our global community as well, to take away, about the future of industrial transformation?
I think 2 things, which is back to that notion of, if you want to be a good eye, you got to be great at data. Like, there's never been a greater need for being able to provide context-rich industrial data, not just to humans. That's simple to access, but if it's simple to access for humans, it's now simple to access for AI. And so you don't have a trade-off there of, I've got to do something with the data for AI. I can do something for the data that makes it so much easier for humans to be able to access, find, and interpret the data, and by extension, that allows AI to do it. So number 1 is go aggressively attack your data challenges within the business. That contextualization of your industrial data is going to fuel so many knock-on benefits for AI and your humans, number 1. So that's the first one. The second one from an AI standpoint is, as you get into this, and this has been the case for the last year and is still the case, you're going to feel like you're too early and too late at the same time. And it's true, right? You are both. you're too early in the sense that things are evolving very quickly, so it always feels like you're in catch-up mode, and that's accurate. But you're also going to feel like you're too late in the sense that because things are moving so quickly, if you don't keep up, you're going to lose out on a lot of the value that you could attain. And in a business setting, value now is much more important than potential value in the future, just because of the time value of money. The value that I can capture at the moment has an outsized impact in the future versus something that might have equivalent value that I achieve a year later. So if I'm going to achieve, $1 million of value now or $1 million of value in a year, you want to do it now. And so that's why you're going to feel that way. You're going to feel like you're too early and you're too late, and it's correct. But don't let that incontinuity slow you down or cause you to hesitate. It's okay to work with that level of ambiguity and push forward, because the more value you can attain early on is going to have huge payoffs later.
Outstanding. Great insights, great points. Thanks so much
Yeah, no
for
problem.
sharing.